Dr. Karl Williard, Southern Illinois University.
We've been doing a lot of work, started with riparian buffers, have moved into things like cover crops, saturated buffers, and also the tool I'm going to talk about today is gypsum applications as a potential phosphorus abatement tool. We started this project 3 years ago with NREC funding. Some of the issues we're dealing with in Southern Illinois, in particular phosphorus, is an important issue in our part of the state compared to other parts of the state. So gypsum is one of those tools. So what we did in our NREC project, we're just starting the 4th year now, but we split it into 2 components. One that you see behind me is the surface runoff study, where we have flumes set up, which are basically capturing surface runoff during rainfall events. So anytime we have rainfall that exceeds about a ½ inch, we're getting runoff here. We have heavier soils here, more clay soil, so we get a lot of surface runoff coming off our different landscapes here. So we're sampling that runoff, and we're looking at specifically the water quality, most specifically looking at dissolved reactive phosphate and then also total phosphorus in the runoff. But we're also looking at things like sulfate, TSS, total suspended solids. We have 12 flumes set up behind here. 3 are control, where we don't have any gypsum applied. Then we have 3 at 1 ton per acre rate. We have 3 at 2 tons per acre, and then 3 at 6 tons per acre. And we surface applied that gypsum back in November and December timeframe of 2018. So we started monitoring prior to that to look at water quality prior to the gypsum application, and then we've been monitoring since the gypsum application. We're actually been noticing more and more over the years suggestion that we can see significant amounts of dissolved reactive phosphate in runoff. It's not just the old adage was, well, most phosphorus is just going to move with sediment. No, we're actually seeing some significant quantities of phosphate that are just moving in the dissolve phase. So hence gypsum as a tool that we could potentially use to try to bind up that phosphate and keep it from running off. And the grand application of this, of course, is we have the Gulf hypoxia issue that we're dealing with. Illinois has a nutrient loss reduction strategy to try to reduce the amount of phosphorus and nitrogen entering waterways that potentially contribute to the hypoxia issue in the Gulf. So we're trying to do our part in Illinois to try to keep more nutrients in the soil that can be utilized for crop production and not exiting with runoff or soil water and contributing to eutrophication issues. And our proposal got funded approximately 3 years ago to do that. So the application rates of 1 ton is a recommended rate. If you have higher soil test P values, if a farmer, so these are the USDA recommendations now, could be up to 2 tons per acre, especially if they have water quality concerns on their working farm. So we wanted to include both of those rates, and then we used really a much higher rate, a maximum rate, just to see how that would function in more of an experimental level, and that was again the 6 tons per acre. So what have we been seeing? Well, we really focused our analysis we split it up into 2 periods. That initial post-application period, which started in December 2018 and went to May 2019, is when we did a phosphorus fertilization. So we were just following our typical protocol, our typical fertilization regime. I will say this is a Hosmer Silt Loam that we're standing on here, and it is a high soil test P area, and we did that on purpose. We wanted to sort of go to a worst case scenario, if you will, for Southern Illinois, in that it does have a lot of phosphorus levels currently in the soil. So we added the gypsum. That initial period, the post-application period, we sampled 15 different storm events, again from December to May. And what we found is that the gypsum is working well to reduce both total phosphorus and DRP in surface runoff. And we were getting approximately about a 45% reduction for that 2 tons per acre rate compared to the control where no gypsum was added. Now, we did the phosphorus fertilization on May 6th of 2019. And then we continued to monitor the water quality of runoff subsequent to that. And what we found is, based on the sulfate levels, we are getting still some of the gypsum is still dissociating because we're still seeing some increased sulfate in runoff in that period compared to the control. But guess what happened? We aren't seeing the phosphate reductions. So what do we think happened? Well, I think what happened is that extra phosphorus that came in during that fertilization period basically swamped out the P abatement effects of the gypsum that was still remaining from May 19 onward. So we didn't see a significant difference between the controls and the treatments, the gypsum treatments, in that post-fertilization period. So we really saw 2 different stories. The initial post-gypsum application and then post-fertilization told us 2 different stories. So what do we want to do going forward? Well, this fall, so 2 years after that initial application, we're going to reapply gypsum. But then this spring, we are not going to do a fertilization. So we want a second cycle to see how long these gypsum effects in terms of P abatement will last without sort of that potential swamping effect of the P fertilization.